Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Chase Corrington YouTube channel. That's me. And today we're taking another look into Dr. Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. Thought it'd be perfect time to do so. So what we're looking at here today is the 9th verse, Living Humility. I'll start with the verse and then we'll go into what Dr. Dyer had to say for us. So the 9th verse of the Tao Te Ching: to keep on filling is not as good as stopping. Overfilled, the cupped hands drip. Better to stop pouring. Fascinating. Sharpen a blade too much, and its edge will soon be lost. Fill your house with jade and gold, and it brings insecurity. Puff yourself with honor and pride, and no one can save you from a fall. Retire when the work is done. This is the way of heaven. Wow. So to me, so far, it's referring to simplicity. The first 4 lines made me think of the story where the Western Zen teacher, the scholar, goes to meet the master, and he's telling him all the things that he knows, that he's learned, and the master says, "Would you like some tea?" And the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And he keeps telling him all the things that he knows about Zen. And the master continues pouring the tea until it's flowing out of the cup onto the table. And the guy says, "The cup is full." And the master says, "As are you. You are like the cup. Too full, no more can fit in. To keep on filling is not as good as stopping. Overfilled, the cupped hands drip. Better to stop pouring." It also makes me think of a saying I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's called "don't push the river." You have to flow with it. In life, when you're trying to achieve things, we so often want to push the river and even sometimes go against it, when all we have to do is flow with it. Because no amount of pushing will cause the river to go any faster. If you've ever been in a river before or done any swimming, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to move here into living humility, which is what Dr. Dyer has to say about the verse here, and I'll interject my own thoughts. As the eternal Tao is in a continuous state of creating, it knows precisely when enough is enough. Deep within ourselves, we sense that this organizing principle of unconditional supply knows when to stop, so we don't need to question the quantities that the Tao brings forth. Just those few lines there could blow your mind. Rewind and listen to that again, just like 30 seconds, because that's powerful. We don't need to question the quantities that the Tao, source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, the quantities that it brings forth. The creative source is beautifully balanced in the principle of humility, elucidated in this 9th verse of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao has the capability to generate everything in amounts that would stupefy an observer, yet its gentle humility seems to know when there are enough trees and flowers and bees and hippos and every other living thing. It's like it just seems to know. This makes me think of the line from a previous verse, it does nothing but leaves nothing undone. Or it does everything without doing anything. That's a good, another way to say that is, its gentle humility seems to know when there are enough trees and flowers and bees and every other living thing. Excess is eschewed by the Tao. It does not need to show off its unlimited capacity for creating. It knows exactly when to stop. This verse invites us to be in spiritual rapport with this characteristic of the Tao. Cramming life with possessions and pleasures and pride and activities when we've obviously reached a point where more is less indicates being in harmony with ego, not the Tao. Living humility knows when to just stop, let go, and enjoy the fruits of our labor. This verse clearly makes an analogy. This verse clearly makes an analogy that the pursuit of more status, more money, more power, more approval, more stuff is a foolish act and is as foolish as honoring a carving knife after it has reached its zenith of sharpness. Not honoring, honing. Okay. So like if you sharpen a knife, it can only get so sharp. And once it is, continued sharpening is almost counterproductive. Does that make sense? So the pursuit of more status, more money, more power, more things is as foolish as honing a knife after it's reached perfect sharpness. This verse is a deep one, and it really helps show the paradoxical nature of how striving sometimes leads to less results than a way of just arriving and being here now. Obviously, to continue would just create dullness, and it is obvious that a keen edge represents perfection. Lao-tzu advises us to be careful about amassing great wealth and storing it away. Despite, I'll add this, despite thinking that it will make you more secure when you have more things. So this is why I love the Tao and these spiritual paradoxes, these universal qualities of everything, is that like the more that you have and the more that you gain and pile and store away, thinking that you'll have security and comfort, the more you do that, the more you find yourself, envious and worrying for your stash, that it won't be stolen from others. How did the verse put it? It was so perfect. It was, fill your house with jade and gold, and it brings insecurity, the opposite of the comfort that you thought it would bring. And that's the paradoxical nature that I love about all of this, is that the striving doesn't lead to reaching the results. It's the enjoying the process. While I'm doing this here, I never achieve an expected result. That's the interesting thing about it. I didn't expect to have this area of darkness in the mountain. It just kind of, when I was doing the knife, it just kind of happened. And that's where the real joy is in the happening. Not so much the desired result. And so if we can be in the moment, rather than reaching or hoping, wishing, hope and wishing is just fine, but unattached from the outcome and just let it flow. Don't push the river. I love that saying. It's called Don't Push the River, ladies and gentlemen. So, come to grips with the radical concept of enough is enough. And that's what Wayne Dyer believes Lao-tzu was trying to send as advice to these modern times from his ancient perspective, is that enough is enough. You don't need to overdo. We can heighten our awareness that advertising is primarily designed to sell products and services by convincing us that we need something in order to be happy. That's brilliant to understand about advertising. Since probably the 40s, instead of a necessity for a product, it's feelings. How does it make you feel? Once you have this car, you'll feel good. Once you have these shoes, you'll feel greater. You know, it's interesting to note. Enough is enough, though. Make this commitment, even though you live in a world addicted to the idea that no one can never have enough of anything. To paraphrase Lao-tzu, do your work and then step back. Unattached from the outcomes, but continue to flow in the process with a certainty that the outcomes through the Tao will take care of themselves, because they always do. And if we can find a way to unattach from our subjective ideations, the thoughts that we have, that my viewpoint from my experience in my life makes this event bad compared to that event good, when really both just are, and it is in here the projection to out there that causes bad and good to exist. We need to step back, practice humility rather than ostentation and uncontrolled consumption. The obesity crisis in the Western world, particularly in America, is a direct result of not understanding and living the simple wisdom of the 9th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Eat, but stop when you are full. To continue stuffing food into a satiated body is to be trapped in believing that more of something is the cause of your happiness. And that's a perfect example of happiness coming from something out here rather than in here and going out. And when your happiness, regardless of where it comes from, whether it's food, experiences, physical things, pleasures, whatever it be, if your happiness comes from outside of you, then when it stops coming from outside of you, you can no longer get it. But when your happiness comes from inside of you, there is no way that it can be stopped, because you are the generator of your own happiness. And that is probably the most powerful lesson in life, is if you can become an inward directed person and have the feelings and emotions and thoughts that you have be directed from within you, as you are the source. And there's great power to be had when we return to our source and operate from there, instead of reacting to external stimulus. We respond from within to no matter what happens. So there is no one that can make you angry unless it is within you and you bring it out of you as a response to what happens. Because if somebody is, let's say, insulting you directly to you, if you do not cause the anger, if you do not allow the anger inside of you, the anger will only stay with the person doing the insulting. You will actually cultivate an empathy, a compassion, and want to understand why the other party is bringing that out from within them. And more often than not, I would say 99% of the time, at least here in the West, the negativity comes from us thinking it's something outside of us that controls our thoughts and our feelings. There's a quick little thought experiment. My thoughts control my feelings. And if I control my thoughts, then I control my feelings. Had to expand on that. I feel that's a powerful, powerful lesson to understand. Eat, but stop when you're full. To continue stuffing is not going to cause you happiness. It will cause you to believe that something will give you happiness, when in the truth, it is you that should create it for yourself. When the knife is sharpened, do not continue to sharpen the knife, for only dull it will become. Seek the joy in your activities rather than focusing on ego's agenda. Ooh, this is key here. Ego wants you to gather more and more rewards for your actions. And if you're in a state of loving appreciation in each of your present moments, you're letting go of the absurd idea that you're here to accumulate rewards and merit badges for your efforts. That reminds me of the saying, infinite patience meets with immediate results. Because when you're infinitely patient, you're here now and it's all good and you're no longer waiting. You've achieved the result. Whether you were waiting for something or not, you're already fine, whether it arrives or not. Painting is the perfect metaphor for a lot of this stuff. Because when you go, just like I said, when you go to do this, you can't have this all perfectly lined up where it's going to be, because then it wouldn't happen the way that it does. You'd end up frustrated because you're not achieving the results that you're going for. See? Rather than allowing the results to happen themselves and going with that. Like, I didn't expect this purple hill to be back there. I mean, it's, it's the Tao. It's coming from the source that allows the greatest things to happen. I think about great athletes, you ask them, how did you do it? And so many of them will say, I have no idea. Just kind of comes out of me. Great practice. But in the moment, it's like time slows down. And you don't even think about where you move, what muscle, and, where your eyes focus and all of that. It's just pure flowing. Flow state. All right, let's get into this. Seek the joy in your activities rather than focusing on your ego's agenda. Seek the pleasure in what you're doing, rather than how it might ultimately benefit you and later give you pleasure. See, for some reason, we love to postpone our gratification. We're like, yeah, this could be fun, but once I'm done and it looks how I thought it would, then I'll feel greater. When really, if we're like, yeah, enjoying the whole time, that's the best way. Instead of looking, for some reward in the end, arriving rather than striving. begin to trust in that infinite wisdom that birthed you into this material world. After all, it knew the exact timing of your arrival here. It didn't say, if 9 months will create such a beautiful baby, I'll extend the gestation period to 5 years. Maybe that'll make a really great, you know what I mean? It knows without knowing. And it does perfectly without planning to do. Maybe, although planning is necessary in the physical world. Now we'll have an even more perfect creation after 5 years. Nope, the Tao says that 9 months is perfect, and that's what you get. And you don't need any more time. The next time you're mired in a desire for more, stop and think of the Tao. This creation principle fully grasps the idea that when the work is done, then for God's sake, it's time to stop, ladies and gentlemen. As Lao-tzu advises, this is the way of heaven. Why ever choose to be in conflict with that? And here, last but not least, and this is probably one of my favorite things about this book. I'll leave a link to the book in the description if you'd like to give me a little Amazon affiliate commish, you know, get the book for yourself. I find that owning these is great because you can pick it up and flip to, you don't have to, you know, go through. I'm a fan of physical books, I'll say that. Do the Tao now. Here's our challenge from Dr. Dyer. As at your next meal, practice portion control by asking yourself after several bites if you're still famished. If not, just stop and wait. If no hunger appears, call it complete. At this one meal, you'll have practiced the last sentence of the 9th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Retire when the eating is done, or the work, or, you know, this is the way of heaven. Retire when the work is done. Overfilled, the cupped hands drip. Better to stop pouring. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much if you joined me. I hope you really got value out of this. Hope this helps bring some peace and serenity and some in the momentness to your life, because that's the real secret about being in the moment. It's like the solution is there. You know, all the peace and the happiness that we're so looking for, when we arrive here in the moment and we just experience it with no judgment, just full experience, you find that instead of feeling like, oh, if I do this, then I'll feel that, it's all right here to be had now. Especially if we can let go of our ego desires. Spiritual materialism is something I'd like to talk about in the future. That's a fascinating subject. But for now, I'll leave it there. If you're interested in owning this painting or any one of my paintings, you can go to clcoilpainting.com or the CLC Paint Etsy shop and check out all the awesome original paintings. I got many paintings and all kinds of great stuff for you to look at there. That's another way to support me, ladies and gentlemen. Check the description below. I always put some stuff in there, and I'll be back in the future with more living the wisdom of the Tao, as well as other interesting topics, philosophies, and parts of the way to you. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. Smash the like, consider subscribing. Take care.